Yeah. No, yeah. Easier than good. You're right. Start picking up. Start picking up.
I'm saying for close.
Everyone can read the screen now? Is it right? Okay. 10 minutes left. Get beers, get sweet, get what you do. How are you? Fine, yeah. You're looking Just quickly, who is not a web developer here? Only web developers? Okay.
Oh, yes, keep my hands.
Là, 26, 30. Non.
You have to open the gate. How can you open the gate?
So basically, whenever find count, just send me an email.
Or I can pick it up. Can I open the gate from inside? No.
From inside, yeah, if you take the layer to layer, no problem. Ouais, j'ai 5 minutes de slide pour commencer le truc. Attends 2 secondes. On peut commencer là-dessus. Tout le monde avait dit. Il va falloir servir, sinon il n'y a pas les Pendant le break, je vais mettre. Je t'ai connecté un peu. Il manque des choses. Ah, putain. C'est Makers Welcome avec un menu. Merde. Tu veux que je commence plutôt? Non, non, c'est bon. En fait, je vais commencer. T'es sûr? Ouais, c'est pas. Hello, guys. Welcome to the DevRocket February meetup. Last time it was the name more that much of PhoneGap. We were talking more about UI database, how can we make a UI on mobile. So everything around mobile, but not the PhoneGap directly. So I think we should not limit ourselves only to one technology. We should be able to take just the right tool for the right project. So far we have not 360, but 370 members, which is great for a quite independent meetup like that. We already organized 7 events. We drink a lot of beers. We already get some pizzas, and I hope you will eat more and more. I don't care. As I said, PhoneGap is cool, but developing apps is much better. So if we need to use the right technology for that, I'm disturbed. Okay, sorry. So tonight we have 2 talks. I will have a quick introduction. Well, an introduction about React.js, and James will present how can we make offline mobile database on while synchronize that with an external server really easily. So I would like to thank our 2 sponsors tonight. So Makers Academy, they let us the venue, and it's really great. They're really nice on that. Normally after or James or one of them would present, because they have really interesting courses from beginners to a more advanced level on development. And Couchbase is another sponsor too. James is one of their developer evangelists. He will present you that more in detail. You'll enjoy the event, and I will start with my presentation about React.js.
Just before anyone wants to bid, I'll come. We need to finish.
What's an opener?
The next. I'm not responsible of your acts.
Some of you don't need one.
So first, is there anyone already playing with React.js at their job, developing already some professional project with that? Who has more an AngularJS background? Yeah, shit. Amber? Backbone? I will not ask about jQuery because I hope you will not answer it. More tools? I stopped. So I will show you what I learned so far with React.js. So I'm really not an expert on that. I just found it really useful on the case that I was working on. And I found, I mean, as a web developer, more generally as a software engineer, we're always curious that I will detail more after, because it's new, because it's fresh, because it's fancy, everyone gets interested. And because there is a lot of stars on GitHub, obviously a lot of people get interested about it too. I'm a web developer working at Import.io. For the people who don't know Import.io, you certainly already try to scrape data with Phantom.js. You struggle, it's painful. We do it for free and easily. If you have more questions on that, you can ask me later. Let's focus on React now. If you want to check my GitHub, my Twitter, feel free. So what is React.js? First, it's a project made by Facebook to solve one of their problems. And from fixing that problem, they say, why not open source it? Because until not so long time ago, Facebook was a quite closed source company compared to the others. So they released, obviously, Cassandra, other big project like that, HVVM for PHP, but they're not that involved like, I would say, Google or Microsoft on that. But now it's starting to change a lot, especially on the web, and I will show you some projects after that. So React.js is a library to create user interfaces. So it's really doing the job well. I will detail what's the difference after between an Angular, between another library for that. And it's already used in production on Facebook website. So not every part, some of it, because they still have a big legacy, as you can understand from a big application. Instagram web already use that. What it's quite interesting. So many people, me the first one, when I saw React, said, fuck that shit. I mean, who want to use another library? We're already expert in some of them. We don't want to be beginner again. So at first, I was really not, especially you will understand why. I was much more an AngularJS developer. For the people who know me, I already present on Ionic. I already present on Angular in other meetups. So I was a big fan. I had a T-shirt. I had everything. Forward. But the point is, we struggle sometimes with AngularJS. Even compared to what we were doing in jQuery or even worse libraries before, Angular was a big improvement. So but you start to have big problems when you have more than 5,000 binding, especially more on mobile. Ionic solved that problem partly, but we still struggle when we have a lot of elements. Obviously, if you have too much, that means you have a problem of your architecture. But sometimes when you have a big list with a lot of data, especially the trading application, when you have huge data which need to be updated a lot of time, you start to struggle on the memory or on the. You already try to write it's really hard to debug that. So most of the time we pull all the code from the controller, but if you need to use a lot of complex filter, you will that I will give up. I will not play that much, not writing that much of logic. On top of, when you're using an external library, using scope.apply was such a pain in the ass. No one liked to use that. But unfortunately, you have the magic. And for the one who went to the AngularJS conference in Paris, or the one who is really good, has a lot of good things. It's too different that you're saying, damn, what I learned anymore. And in a production way. But Angular 2, as I said, is really nice, really good. It's still not there. And we don't know yet when he will come. And on top of that, what about all about our legacy code? How we will migrate it? We'll teach every. It was quite tough. I wasn't sure. I said, let's give a try with something else, and I will see. Just when I saw that, I said to myself, nah, bro. When I tried from jQuery, no, from background, to Angular, and I saw all that JavaScript in the HTML, I said, damn, I was reading all the blog posts, all the tutorials saying, no, you should separate your JavaScript from your HTML. And AngularJS was against that. But when I play with that, I say, oh, finally, it's quite good. Now I come to that you have to know. React is a library. You have a sub-component of that. One of them is JSX. JSX is basically a which translates all the kind of the syntax that you saw earlier, which is here. You see it's DOM, basically HTML, but behind that, HTML is just an XML implementation. So basically, JSX take directly to this kind of code. That's what basically your production code will look like. But because it's painful to write it in that way, React.createElement, we prefer it to write directly more like an obvious way to read, which is HTML. But behind that, it's only that. You don't have something else on top of that. That way, some people do it. When you have a lot of child. Another thing which makes the power of React, it's what we call virtual DOM. So when you have a lot of DOM elements, especially when you have big ng repeat, we found that as soon as you modify it, AngularJS was quite clever to cache it in a way to directly. But the problem is when you have two big lists, sometimes you might struggle in performance. Virtual DOM, what does it do? Basically, it's like a gateway. Trying to do it by yourself, that div to that list costs too much when you have thousands of elements. And virtual DOM, it's basically will check where it needs to change the content that part. So what you can see so far, it's basically the DOM tree. And instead of ditching everything like you would do with vanilla JavaScript or some AngularJS quite complex script, you will just let basically React dealing with that. We'll check where it needs to be changed, but not everything. And it's done in a way that, because the DOM is kept in memory by React, you will know precisely where it needs to change it. So far, I show you what make React.js quicker on the implementation. On top of that, when you use AngularJS, basically you're playing with the scope. So you're adding an attribute, a variable or property, you change the array, etc. But you're waiting basically for the dirty watching to watch your variables that change and renew that. Thanks to the new JavaScript, now we have object observe, which is as close as nearly you will say, let's change it directly. But still not as fast as saying, hey, AngularJS, I modify, let's check now. That's basically what you can see with these .set state. It will tell to React, update that model of my component, and from that, it will re-render automatically the template. But only when you do set state or force update. But you know basically when you will re-render, when you will trigger a render. It's not waiting, hoping that Angular will go through your code and analyze your model. On top of that, what you can see so far, it's you have other functions. So get initial state, if I can compare that to a controller in AngularJS, to be like your default code that you will fill with your template. After that, you have component mount and component will unmount. Component in mount is basically what we can say in a directive way, the link function. So as soon as the directives is loaded in your template, it will go through that function. And after that, you have component will mount, which is what $destroy, which you have in directive and which no one uses, obviously. And because of that, you may have some memory leak sometime because you're holding a huge part of your directives and you don't clean that. You're just hoping that magic will happen. Sometimes not. So you have these different methods of every component because, as I said, React.js is only focusing on the UI. So it's only the V of MVC. The rest, it's up to you. I will show you that there is some ways to handle. Facebook provided Flux, which is an architecture to handle the CMV in another way, but it will not be the subject of my talk. So you have different methods that you know precisely at each step of the life cycle of your component, you can do something. You can ditch all your memory, all your model in memory, you can re-render, you can log something. So it's easily, you can easily just put a breakpoint and debug that. While many times I got the struggle with Angular when it goes through directly the digest and it creates another call stack. So you don't know precisely who called that function. Basically, you have to understand everything here is synchronous. It's not asynchronous. Because as you can understand, it's basically when you're doing an XHR request, obviously it's asynchronous if you want to do it in a clean way. But only calculation of which need to be re-rendered, which need to be updated, is just JavaScript code. So there is no need of asynchronous there. Asynchronous is just a way to don't block the UI. But here you have the UI. If you block the UI, what you will do. So the idea is whenever it triggers a render, you know precisely where you can stop it, where you can say skip the update of the UI. Don't re-render it again. So when you have a huge component that you know that the model didn't change, you can tell him, don't update it. So basically, it's like having a good mix between a double data binding, because from here, what you can see, it's whenever it updates the model, it will render automatically. You don't need to say on that selector precisely update that. It's nearly, as I can see, it's nearly the same template as AngularJS. And on top of that, it doesn't have a binding. Because as I said, it's just when you do set state, it will re-render. So it's a good mix between a bind once and a double data binding, because every time you update the model, you know that it will be updated. And you don't have to take care of all the performance issue of that. So yeah, you can know precisely on each life cycle of your component, you can put some code, so you can monitor really easily on that. What you can see here, here it's what we call the props. Basically, it's what you will have as the scope isolated in a directive. So just properties that you put on top of your component that will get as a default parameters. and the state is the internal model. It should not be shared. So you don't have that isolated shared scope. I have my own state, which is my own scope. And if I want to communicate on top of that, I use the props. There is other way to communicate. There is an event like PubSub stuff, but it's not the point of the talk. So if you want to play with inner HTML because you're using a jQuery plugin, who knows, you can set inner HTML. And as you can see, Facebook name it especially dangerously set inner HTML, because there you lose basically all the power of the JSX, of the virtual mode, the virtual DOM. So basically, you can do it if you want. Doesn't stop you. It's not in a way that, like in Angular, you have to wrap it in scope, apply, etc. You can use it like your normal plugins, but you will lose all the benefits of using React.js. That's why they name it like that, to be sure that you're sure what you're doing. One of the best things of React.js, it's you have the normal render, which is basically you have a DOM node that I can show you here. Yeah, consider mount node like document.body, document.getElement, whatever. So it's just a DOM object. So it will just bind the React application on that main element. So that's the normal render. You have render to string, which basically will take all of the code that needs to render and give a string. So basically, you can render on the server. You don't have the problem of Angular, knowing that you have the JavaScript, the scope. You cannot do, or you need to use Brumbone or other fancy stuff. That's the normal way to how it's used React.js at Facebook. They render everything on the server. Because as Twitter, they got the same problem of showing the first update on the page as soon as possible. Because in Angular way, basically, you will have the page loaded, which will be empty. You will have an HR. You will get the content, the data, and after that, you will start to load the template. Even if you give the JSON from the beginning to your page, you still have that render on the client. Sometimes really quick, just 50 milliseconds. But that 50 milliseconds can be noticed by the user. While here, if you render on the server, you have already the code ready for the user, for the bots who will index your website. And renders to string, why they have two things? It's basically one, the only thing that React.js is adding to your HTML is an attribute named data minus React ID. Just that, no more than that. And when you use render to static markup, it basically remove that ID. So you can use basically React.js as a way to organize your HTML without using React.js. So you can use it, for example, in development or internal mode, and after that, it will just give proper HTML. So for example, this one is the web app, the WhatsApp web version for the Android users. And I will show you after, but every part here is a component. And we can see quite not deeply, but partly the code of it. So chat list panel, message wrapper, all of that, you will have the DOM tree of the React.js of that. I will show you in details more after. There is like AngularJS Batarang, an extension for Google Chrome that lets you inspect your JSX code instead of your HTML. It will make sense when I will make the demo, which I will do it now. For example, I have here the Facebook React.js page. While I'm expecting the elements, you can see here you have different nodes, and here you have data minus React ID. It's what I said earlier. So that's your elements way to read your DOM tree. If you want to read it in the JSX way, we will click here. And here you can see your different elements. So React Playground, hello message, and you can see the props And if the element has a state, you can see the state and modify that, and it will trigger a render. So you can easily test without doing angular.element, scope, etc., etc. And compared to Batarang, doesn't freeze after a lot of elements.
Is this a plugin? Is it
it's an extension basically that you add, which is really like Batarang. It's the same way that it works with. Sorry. So it's really good in many ways. You can see basically the different binding that you need. So like on-click, etc. They don't use a special way to name them like ng-click. They use really the same way that you will write your own HTML. As you can see, sorry, again. As you can see in the example, here, for example, there is a button. So whenever I add another to-do, it will add it automatically. And the only point that I need to add is unsubmit, unclick, unchange. So they take basically the same names as the DOM convention, DOM implementation, DOM specification, because they don't want people to learn on top of the HTML API, not the specific stuff. They really want to fit as soon. They really want to fit the most of the DOM API you need to learn. If you need an event, just remember the name of it on MDN or W3 School for the beginners, and you just add it to your JS6 code. So I just show you basically what is React.js. But when I show you earlier the JS6 to JS code, where we can see here, sorry. React.createElement is basically like document.createElement. The only difference that does it do, it will add in the virtual DOM that element, saying add it to your memory, like that it will be easier to do the diff algorithms between the different elements. And after that, do a document.createElement. But the document.createElement just a way to render. And we can render in different way because as we know as developers, we just know the DOM, but we can render maybe in a canvas. We just need, instead of document.createElement, it will say draw that polygon, which is what Flipboard did, React Canvas. So all of that, basically when they created that mobile app, which is Flipboard on mobile, they had the problem of scrolling, which it wasn't as good as they wanted because obviously they have a lot of fanciness on their animations. And they found the only way to fix that was to use the GPU. And even using CSS3 animation didn't solve the problem. So they used the canvas. But all behind is nearly the same kind of code that you will write with JS6. So earlier, instead of having P, div, EMG, you will have text, image, etc. But otherwise, it's nearly the same React.js code. Your logic will stay the same, just you will not use the same elements. And on mobile, like that, they achieve to have the 60 FPS. You can use it on your Android or iPhone. That surprised me. It works really good on Android browsers because that's the problem. It's only from Lollipop that we have really good browsers, but before it was stuck in kind of old Chrome versions, and it works really good on that too. Another thing that Facebook gave us is immutable JS. Is there anyone who already played with ClojureScript? Yeah, so I will say in the word that I can understand because I didn't play with it so far. Just from what I know, it's everything in ClojureScript is immutable. So for what we can understand as a JavaScript developer, it's when you have an array, for example, where we can see here, and we push elements, we'll modify that array. While with immutable JS or in ClojureScript, it will just give you another array. So it will not touch that array that you think you're modifying. The good thing of that is in JavaScript, when you're comparing two objects, because you cannot compare it deeply, when you do a triple equal, it will compare the reference of the object. And basically by using immutable JS, as soon as you modify a map, a list, an object, it will create another object. So it will have another reference in the memory. So like that, you can easily compare if that object is new or not compared to your current object. And that's what is used by React.js to know if it has to re-render everything or not. JS in the memory, and it will take a lot of time. They're doing a diff algorithm between the different objects and try to keep most of the values in common. But for you, it's transparent. You just have another object, so another reference. Like that, you can compare really quickly without consuming a lot of CPU. And recently, they released so React Native, which is basically for me a really, really good project, is what I show you with the React Canvas, the native development. So for you, you will still have like this DOM tree look like. So for example, here, what you can see so far, it's you have Navigator iOS. So to have that bar, which is a native element that handle all the navigation, you write in a way like you will write your own DOM, your own HTML. But behind, it will translate that to iOS or Android code. And you keep the same code for your stuff. So all the models, all the logic will not change. Basically, you will just change the render part between your web component and your native component. But you're still playing with JavaScript. You don't have something different on that. And compared to other solutions like Titanium, Corona, etc., it gives you the whole project. It doesn't give you something compiled where you cannot touch. That's something really good. It's still in alpha, private alpha, so not everyone can use it so far because they still need a lot of components to achieve basically the same behavior that you can have on mobile. But if you want to be sure about is it production ready or not, as soon as they will release it, they're using it currently in Facebook group iOS app. Everything is made in React.js. And that's for me. Any questions so far? Yeah.
When it comes to the server-side rendering,
yeah,
on your code, you get that content back. You know, ideally, in theory, you're loading the same code, client and server. So is there then a way for you to take that rendered content on the server and then on the client, bind all those DOM elements to objects
so
that you can use?
Basically, what you will do, it's here. What can I show you so far? It's when you render to the mount node, on the server you will do renders to string, you will have that string. You just have to return it to the client. And on the client, you will have this same line on the rendered on the server div or body directly. And React.js will automatically plug itself on it. It will not re-render the whole view. So like that, basically, it's really transparent for the user, and for you, you're saving a lot of CPU cycles. So it's really good when you have a lot of servers, because I think on internal tools, you may have only one really small server, so it doesn't make sense to do all the render on the server. But if you have big startup where your own focus is really to have render for the clients as soon as possible, see SEO problem solved, you can do that without losing on the performance. It's even better doing that than the normal way of React. So that's a really good thing. And as soon as it will plug, all the binding to the click, to the focus, to the blurring, etc., will be done automatically. You don't have to do something on top of that. It was made by the beginning for that. So that's really, really good. I saw another question.
Yeah. I haven't read much into React before, but In terms of legacy browser compatibility.
They have the support of IE8.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been looking into React and trying to get started, but obviously there's a big React Angular the whole performance benchmark thing. But I haven't found any. But I was wondering maybe if you could shed light on any specific problem that maybe where React actually begins to suffer from performance or something.
So first, what you will on the code, I really found myself that I'm writing much better code with React, not because it makes me a better man, just because in Angular way, basically, as soon as you need to do something, you see, is there a factory for that? Basically, we got the same problem like jQuery. Instead of doing real JavaScript, so real XHR requests, etc., I said, oh, I don't know how to do that. Let's have a look to the documentation. While React is just handling the view. So basically, the rest, you write your own JavaScript code without problem. So on the code side, it's really easy to write without problem. That helped me a lot. On the testing part, I didn't dig that much. They have what they call Jest. It's a framework on top of Jasmine that helps you to code JSX code, to code asynchronous code, but still Jasmine behind. And because you're only focusing on the view, you're testing your, basically the model part, your logic, but not in an AngularJS scoping magic way. And finally, on the performance, because you're rendering only when you want to render, and you have even a method named should_component_update, so it will call it before calling render. So if you know that you have a big part of your app which doesn't need to re-render, you say, no, I don't want to re-render, and it will stop it. So basically, you really control every part of the rendering part, of the rendering process, sorry, without being a hacker, digging too much in the watching, in the cycling, in the applying process. That's really, really good. Because everything, as I said, is synchronous. You know precisely from which step goes to the other step. We're good? Yeah.
For example, my website has a lot of, it is dependent on push service.
Push service?
Any push service or something like that, which I'll be.
What do you mean by push?
WebSocket.
Oh, but that's the part. It's basically you ask yourself, like, if I can say in an Angular way, but this only handling the view. You can put any JavaScript code that you want. So if you want WebSocket, you just create with the specification that you have on MDN, new WebSocket, and set state. That's the only thing that React needs. But for the rest, you write normal JavaScript. So if you have already a lot of library in JavaScript, you're thinking, hell, I have to migrate that all for React.js. No, it's already working because we don't need a special plug on that on top of this .set state. It's the only thing that you need basically. Otherwise, everything is already ready for that. You had one question?
Yeah, the legacy browser course, you mentioned the IE8 and doesn't support anything older than 8. What about Android browser? Does it support like 2.3?
Android browser, even if the 2.x were quite shitty, they're still better than IE8. But the fact is basically the good thing of React is they made it for Facebook before made it for the community. And they needed that support for all the browsers. So what you have on Facebook, you have it on React. While something that I was quite sad about it of AngularJS, it's hard for the AngularJS team to evangelize AngularJS within Google. So it's a product made by Google, but not every project is using AngularJS. Because many of them don't like JavaScript, many of them are not fond of AngularJS for many reasons. But Facebook is a project that they made it for them, and after that, say, yeah, why not open source it? So that's the good thing, is it's well tested, and we are sure of that because Facebook is not a small website, obviously. So you're keen on that. Yeah.
As a learning curve, how did you find it?
I think the hardest part was to don't think in AngularJS way. I always say Now then, where is my scope? Where is my factory? Where is my router, etc.? So here, for example, you don't have a router. If you want one, there is a project named React Router, which is well done, etc. But if you don't need by default, you don't use it. In AngularJS way, because something that I don't want to get wrong on that, AngularJS is really good because it's a framework. So you use it ready to use and normally handle all the cases. But as soon as you have a tricky case, you say, okay, I have to use UI router like many people. NG router was here good for the beginning, but they didn't update it. Here they're just handling the UI. And on the UI, not even the UI, on UI elements, etc. They're just rendering. So after that, what you want to do and the way you want to do, you're free on that. So you're not blocked by a way to understand it or to do things. That's the good part of React. Did I sell it well? No more questions? Yeah.
What about third-party libraries? Let's say you want to put an ACE in it or something. Is this
for that,
plug or?
I will show you what they have on their website. They have here, for example, Showdown, which is a Markdown library. So they create an instance of it, and as soon as the text area gets changed, they set the state, and the rendered is made here by the Showdown library. And it works without problem. So you don't have a special apply or etc. You have the set state, which is obviously the internal state of the component. But otherwise, the rest you're free to do whatever you want. We will take a small break, and after that, James will do his talk. Thank you. Tu fais un hangout in the air. Je sais pas comment tu peux joindre. Je t'envoie le lien. Je m'envoie le lien sur quoi sur Gmail. Et attends. C'est bon, t'es prêt pour la démo? Oui. Mets-toi dessus pour voir comment ça marche. Si je dois te donner l'accès ou un truc comme ça. Vas-y, tu vois. Est-ce que je partage là?
All right, let's go. Just a bit. All right. Cool. Can everyone see? Because maybe the colors are right. Was it okay when Yassine was standing here for you to see through Yassine? Like, oh, he was they're sitting all day, you know. Cool. So today I'll talk about building offline first mobile applications, and this applies to native as well as JavaScript using React. You know, so it's something that a lot of you probably are thinking about too. So yeah, I work at Couchbase, and I work more specifically on the mobile products that I'll present. So for instance, you know, you're jumping from a plane, you want some network, or not, maybe you don't have some, but you want your data. So that's a good use case for offline. So actually, has anyone seen that? It's an advert from hotels.com, and
Get that
Cool. So basically, app development. So we spend a lot of time building the logic and the data, the connectivity, the network stack on the server side. If you're and then on the app side as well. And maybe React stands here, but in the context of the Flux architecture, and then your server side as well, maybe there's all that as well that you have to consider. So it's a lot of work. So how to make this easier? Basically, we figured, a lot of the time we spend some time implementing business rules, like this user should have that, and that user should have this. And that's common to a lot of apps, across the app stores. So can we try and have a higher level construct to determine that and build them quicker? So quick word on offline first. So basically, offline first means you have several ways of defining offline first, but I think the easiest is to say you will always interact with your local database, and then your local database will have logic with an HTTP network stack to replicate this to the network. That way, you never get into an issue where you're doing an HTTP request, you've got some documents in your database, and you don't know what's happening. So that's a good way of seeing it from the developer perspective. You're up there, and you're always just talking, read, update, put, delete to your database. Great. So turns out it's quite hard to have an HTTP networking client underneath your local database. Is anyone doing iOS here? iOS development? Yeah, native. Yeah. Well, they have this AF networking, which is basically like the Angular $HTTP, and it's great for doing network requests. But they wanted to build AF incremental store, which was basically a way to say that's your core data database. Your core data in iOS, the equivalent is like local storage, and so they wanted to build this AF incremental store in the local storage equivalent, and then underneath have AF networking. And well, they stopped the project because it was probably too ambitious. Matt is a really great open source contributor, so it's hard to do that on your own. He's got lots of projects. So develop Couchbase. So that's Java, but basically it's to say you're creating a database called demo, and that's JSON. Actually, what's going to be underneath there is all JSON. Yeah. So JSON on the server, in the database. So let's go. Cool. Let's see. Yeah. How does that sound? JSON everywhere. Cool. So data orchestration. So you've got your JSON that's saved in your local database. So Couchbase Lite is a database we provide locally for people to use locally. So it's the equivalent of like local storage, but like on native clients. And the equivalent for web would be PouchDB. And so it's all JSON. Right? But now you want documents to be synced across other devices. So this iPad has all those documents, and that the last time we synced was that date, and now we can sync new this. But imagine now you have like an iPhone, an iPad, an Android phone, 5 watches. I don't know. It grows in complexity, so it becomes hard to figure out who's got what. So Sync Gateway is the cloud think of it like a Firebase, but stored, on your own servers. And this basically provides the logic to say who's got what, and which user should pull which documents, and all in JSON again. So very objective. So let's see. Anyone's heard of Realm before? Right. Okay. So Firebase, they were big with Angular, right? They had lots of demo apps with Angular. I'm not sure, have they got them with React as well now? They said, yeah?
They set up some support, but not all of them. As I said earlier, even if it doesn't have directly support for React, don't forget that it's just JavaScript. You can plug it with set state without any problem.
Yeah, so, and that's the Cloud Kit. So that's all hosted for you, so you basically pay them, the more usage, the more you pay. And Realm and Couchbase are like executables you install on your own. So you see the difference here is like with Firebase or CloudKit, you would have like a normal get documents. Here we have a notion of like the notion of replication. I'll explain a bit more later. Conflict resolution, like two devices are offline, they both update the document and your name, and then they come together and which document. So that we provide full conflict resolution as well. I think JSON. So you can change your model, your schema very, very easily on mobile, and that's something that until now was present on the server side. Flexible JSON schema is pretty powerful. It's something that's coming up. Most like when you set up something with CloudKit or Firebase, you have your tables or paths. You have your set of tables. You want to create a property only for one. So, how do we know which user should have which document? That's a sync function. Be executed on every document. It's written in JavaScript. It's a pure function, meaning that like given an input, the output should always be the same. So you shouldn't like in the function do another request to the database because that may change the output. Given the time you make that input. So it shouldn't try and have side effects on other processes. And it can be changed at any time. So I'll explain a bit more. In the sync function, we give you those 6 functions. And that's to say, like a channel is to say like it's a folder where you put documents. Think of it like a table where you could have many, many channels. And access says this user has access to this channel, right? So we've got 4 more, but we'll just think about the two at the top there. So you say that's your sync function, that's your backend, that's a to-do app. So function document, all document, forget all document for now, and we have 3 types of documents. So it could be a task, a list, or a profile. And here we've got SingGateway on the cloud running, maybe on Heroku or something. And then we have our iPhone, and our iPhone replicates this JSON document to SingGateway. And SingGateway is going to know, like, where does it go if I log in from an iPad as the same user? Who should have it? So here we've got Johnny. He's logging in. So here, what happens? It runs here. Oh, okay. So it's a profile. So we're giving access to Johnny. We're giving Johnny access to the profiles channel here. So that's to say, he's going to replicate all the documents that are in this channel. So if we store all our users in this profiles channel, when users log in, they can see the list of all the users using this app, for instance. Second use case. Can anyone see? maybe it's a bit too long. Second use case, so that's a list. So if it's a list, we say, okay, so channel list dash dot underscore ID. So underscore ID is 123. So it's going in there, right? So it's like routing to that channel. And then we're saying doc.owner, so that's Johnny. And we're giving Johnny access to list dash the same 123. So when he logs in from his iPad, he will replicate this list dash 123. And we're also saying that all the members, so that's a members array, so overall you see, they will have access to the same channel. So I could share my lists, my to-do lists with other users, and then when they log in, because I've said, I want to share it with April and Yassine, then they will have access to it too. Right? So channel is routing, access is like saying we can pull when we want to data. When we ask for data, this will be the data you will get. So cool. So and the last use case, it's a task. So we've got the lists and the tasks. And so if it's a task, we say just go in the channel list dash dot list underscore ID. So list underscore ID is 123, so it's like a task of that list. We have that. And so it's going in there. So it could be different documents, different types of documents in that same channel, and the people who subscribe to it just put it. I know it's kind of hard, but I think it makes you think differently about backend development. So we have a to-do demo Android app. So basically, so here, if I say like bacon, it's so it will call every 20 seconds or something like that. So it'll take a bit of time. But it's here, and so that's very basic, but I'm not sure. I've just added one from my phone here, and yeah. One user. I don't think you can see. He's saying the iPhone just pushed a doc, and these users want it, so I'm going to send it to them. There's only one user, but normally on that page you should see like the list of users, and so you say this member, this member, this member has. Look, there's also the JavaScript version of it. Cool. So let's see. So we have different implementations, but like the one today is like the PhoneGap one. And the PhoneGap one is interesting because what's happening at the moment is we have iOS SDK is native, right, and Android SDK native. And we have a component which is called like a couch-based listener, which will basically say, there's two ways to interact with your database on your device. It's like via HTTP or via the SDK we provided. So the first slide I showed with click properties and save them. So the way we do it with PhoneGap at the moment is by this couch-based listener. And we just send requests to the local listener, and so there's a common JavaScript plugin, PhoneGap plugin, and we do it that way. In the future, we'll have sing-away compatibility with PouchDB, which is going to be awesome because it's basically an implementation of what we do in JavaScript. So I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, at the moment, PhoneGap plugin. Cool. User context to say, so far those are the channels you have access to. Just to show you this slide, nothing really to say. The replication algorithm. So it's basically to say we send the smallest amount of data to perform the desired operation. So on the To-Do app I showed earlier, that's basically the only replication code we need. So we get an access token back from the Facebook SDK when you authorize the app, and then we say create a pull replication. The sync URL is like the URL of my Facebook authenticator, which is like the access token, right? And this is set continuous, so it means WebSocket. Same for push, so pull and push, start, and then make sure you always have the latest data on your device. So no like network manager craziness and syncing with your local database, because that's coming underneath, right? As a local database, and the replicators are pushing in the documents underneath, right? So you can get them from your local database. Say you want a bit more like granularity, you can say I want to only pull that channel, that list, so that list, yeah. And then that will only pull that list, so you can review as well. And a quick screenshot of like how it works in action. Basically, when you start the To-Do Light app, it's going to do a GET request to say, yeah, this is me, and the user context will get back to you. So those are the channels you have access to, and then we'll say send a checkpoint, and that's to say that's how much data I have so far. And once we have that, we're going to post a request to SyncGateway /revs_diff, which basically means like those are the IDs of the documents I have. And SyncGateway is going to reply and say, okay, those are the documents you don't have. And then we're going to do post bulk get to say, right, now give me the documents, because you just told me I didn't have them, now give them to me. And then we basically do a put of a checkpoint. We did a get here, but here we do a put to say, okay, we replicated that much. Now we're here. We've changed. So yeah. Cool. So yeah, thanks a lot. Just to say one thing, that replication protocol here is basically a CouchDB standard. So CouchDB is open sourced under the Apache Confidence. You know what I mean, the license. And PouchDB, the JavaScript implementation, follows that protocol as well, and we follow it as well. So there's a whole bunch of people that are like around the CouchDB space, and everything we do is open source, so you can use it on your apps as well. So yeah, thanks a lot for welcoming me.
Data.
Yeah.
Is there, how does the platform go about it? So does it decide to use the TV? Does it decide to use SQL?
Yeah, yeah.
And do you have the power to say, I totally want you to use this one? It's like appreciate support for index TV. So
yeah, that's a great question. So PouchDB will check if you have support for Web SQL, IndexedDB, or what's the last one? Yeah. So yeah, I think on Safari, I think they use. I don't think they use. I don't remember what, but basically they have different adapters, and so the first thing PouchDB does when it runs on your phone or on your laptop is like, what do you support, and then it uses one of those to store the data. On native, we have our own database underneath, so it's called ForestDB, and it's built for key value store performance. So because we have control over that, SDKs we ship in iOS and Android, but like in the browser you don't. So that's what ForestDB does.
Does it like, do you have that support to say, okay, so I'm guessing you have support to say you specifically want this or that,
yeah.
Or I don't want it.
You can say like I want to use this one to PouchDB, but like if you say I want to use this one and it's not supported, then you'll have problems. I think they've worked on it a lot to know which one you should use, but you can swap them in. Okay, cool. So that one I know. The first one, Meteor. Yeah, you've maybe done more Meteor than
I may answer partly to that. Meteor is really good if you want to bootstrap really quickly. Basically, you have MongoDB. It's you have the framework on the client side, so it's made in an AngularJS way. It's ready to use quickly. But whenever you want to use something more specific, you may do it. Basically, you have the same problem, framework oriented. But with Couchbase, it's only the database helping you to handle that. But it's only a database. So if you want to use Node.js, Java, Python, or Ruby backend, or an Android or iOS, you're not stopped by. You just have to put that protocol. But Meteor really focus you on the web with the.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, it's to say that we follow a standard on iOS, on Android, JavaScript, and Gateway. So you could replicate from an iPhone to another iPhone, peer-to-peer, because it's the same interface everywhere. So that's how it differs from Meteor. It's like we're following a standard, we've implemented it everywhere, and that's it. Whereas Meteor is still like a three-tier application stack like that, server, client, browser. So I think that's how it's different. Does that answer? So you could totally do peer-to-peer with Couchbase. No problem. Yeah, we have on blog.couchbase.com/photodrop. We have when you do an airdrop. So basically, we do a picture sharing app peer-to-peer. So two devices connect via Bonjour or like any other network, and then they can send data via the replicators. So instead of replicating to a SIM gateway, you're replicating to another Couchbase like database running on the device. It could be CouchDB as well. And the second question, conflict resolution, basically, it's a bit like, think of it like every document is its own GitHub repo. I know that sounds crazy, but like basically, that's how it works. So when you update the document, we're gonna it's like doing a commit, and we're gonna keep the previous revision of that document. So if you're on two separate devices and they do commits from the same, they do an update from the same commit, it's gonna create a branch. Right? They're gonna be like this, and so we have to pick one over the other. But because we keep those revisions, you can add your custom logic to say, I'm gonna show to the user, the two versions, and he's gonna pick one. Or I'm going to pick the one with the most updated property, the latest updated at property. So you don't have to keep those revisions if you don't want conflict resolution, but if you want it, that's how it is. You have full control. Yeah, that's where it differs a lot from the other CloudKit and stuff where it's I think they use pinning where they have versions of documents. But they can't keep the different versions of them and give you a clean API to do the conflict resolution. It's you have to really hack your way. That's why I don't know if you experience cloud sync, iCloud syncing. Sometimes just it's a mess. It's there's so many blog posts where the guy is on his Mac, it's updating on his iPhone. He's pushing, it's updating on his Mac, but then his Mac's not, replicating back to the iPhone. It's doing one-sided replication. So that's where sync is messed up. Yes.
Sorry. How much of the
Yeah. So if you don't actually want your app to work offline, if it's like a local only app. Oh, you mean like yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah, yeah, I think like JavaScript definitely, because like, how would you do it today? How would you have offline first support on your JavaScript apps today? Any idea? Yeah, like yeah, you can totally. So, but your API, hasn't got a clean way of saying that's how I'm going to talk to a Couchbase. I probably you're not building your app in mind to use Couchbase in 6 months. So that's a problem as well. So you have to basically rewrite. On iOS, they have core data, the equivalent of local storage, and core data provides hooks to be able to add a database underneath of it and say, like, core data is just an object relation in the mapper. It's not saving it. By default, it's using SQLite, but you can totally swap to database like. In this case, your models are the same, and you're just saying swap in SQLite for Couchbase now. So that could work. You could do the total, use of Couchbase like without rewriting your model. But for JavaScript app, for instance, using local storage, then I think the rewrite would have to be. I'm sure there are some. Yeah, I'm sure there. So for Angular, I know there's an Angular service that you use with PouchDB. It's just wrapping everything done with Python. And I think there's probably one for Amber. I haven't done that much with Amber, so I'm not sure. But if you, Google maybe Amber.js, PouchDB, that has to be
So when it comes to the offline data that you're storing, is it built into the tools themselves to handle like scenario when I should run out of local storage data?
Yeah.
Because we're using DXDB, the storage requirements are much larger than the storage, like 5 megs of storage. So is it transparent to me, the end user, that is there some kind of caching mechanism of the LRM cache that's just going to check all this stuff out until I ask for it?
Yeah, as a developer, yeah, you can basically compact. So I'm going to now delete all the documents, all of the revisions.
So it's not going to happen for me.
No, so that's a great use case for building a tool on top of Couchbase Lab. And so I can totally think of an app that would do that, project that would do that for you on top, that you would import as a module in that to do that for you. So that's a great question. That's a great question. Yeah, actually, yeah, I'll definitely think about that because it's a really good use case for mobile where you only have five minutes. Yeah.
I think it makes the sometimes the default settings depending on the browser.
Yeah.
Who knows how to go in and change that from flag to something?
Yeah. Yeah, really good. Cool. Yeah. 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 So only like sync what's changed, maybe, for example, instead of syncing like the whole book. So Jens, the iOS leader on Couchbase Lite, is implementing that. But at the moment, there's no support for Delta documents, so you have to pull the new. Yeah.
So regarding the merging the whole Git repo every document. So for example, like you said, a good way to handle that would be to have like a property on your data to say when the data was accessed. Well, a good case is like, say, one of my users in America. Now, they have a timestamp that they access this data at that time, and I'm in, say, Australia, I use Firebase and there's a particular object that they let Firebase set the type value. Is there something similar that basically just syncs the time frame of the person and the server, so that when you say give a particular time, you kind of know if everyone's on the same time.
Yeah. So we're talking about this slide. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like how you would do it if you were doing like local storage on one side and then $HTTP for Angular, I don't know, React on the other. So that's how you would do it. We do it differently, totally differently. We use like checkpoints. So basically, it's like a timeline of the database, the timeline, and so it's absolute. It's not relative to where you are. So those are all the changes that are happening like all over the life of the database, and we know that you stop there, and so we're going to carry on here. And using the sync function, we know which one to pick. This one, this one, this one. So that's how it differs from having a date property in the JSON. Cool.
Just something maybe to show more of that in detail. Basically, it's what we call the sync function. So it's there where, when you want to synchronize, you would decide here precisely what you want to do. So if the type is that, if the user is younger, older or younger than 18 years old, if it was made within 5 minutes of another update, you can write any JavaScript code here, and based on that, you will validate another config, on top of having a default behavior.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, it's basically use case of prefetching data. Let's say you're doing an offline create application and you just want to always have like 1,000 questions in advance in case of offline. Is the sync function in place where you would say always make sure to have 1,000 ready offline? Or where would that logic be?
So 1,000 questions.
The fact of prefetch and maintain certain.
So that's to say, like, a user has access to those documents. When a device comes to Singaway to say, I want just to pull replication. It's going to just send you everything. So you may not want that. So you can set filters to say, I only want to pull this channel, and in this channel I want the first 1,000 documents. Like what you could totally do on an app, on a native app, is like, you can have like an iOS background notifications that wake up your device. So you could say, every day at 11, I wake up my device with a background fetch. I set up a replication to Sing Gateway to fetch the documents, and then I close the replication. So that when you open the device, it's already there. That's it.
So basically, we have some logic and then which one you need to have it.
Yeah, it's just yeah. But the logic is this basically. It's on the server, but like your background notification is waking up your phone while it's in your pocket to say fetch some new data, and then it's doing it, and then when you put it out, it's already there. That's the way of doing it.
Do you have a resource I can go to that provides more complex examples of
Yeah.
issues?
So honestly, like actually I forgot to show one slide. You can go to, who knows Gitsa.im? Seems like to be taking off right now. Yeah, maybe not. So we're using Gitsa.im/couchbase, where you see all the list of channels. So if you want to speak to the iOS guys, you want to speak to JavaScript guys, it's just the chat. So I would recommend hitting that if you want recommendations. And then otherwise, so if you go to Couchbase Mobile, you can see there's like we have guides here and like tutorials. But otherwise, if you hit Couchbase Labs, there's a bunch of example apps. So I think there's one called CRM. Yeah, so that's like a full CRM Couchbase slide demo. I haven't looked at it yet, but the customer said they thought it was great. So. And otherwise, if you PhoneGap. Oh yes. So PhotoDrop is the peer-to-peer one. PhoneGap. We've got To Do Like PhoneGap, Couch Chat. Yeah, a couple of those are example apps. But do go to github.im/couchbase and don't hesitate to ping us. You know, who feels. Go ahead. Cool. Another question. Great. Well, thanks very much.
It's the end of the meetup. If there is still some beers, I don't know, on the table or next to you, finish them, guys. I don't think there is other things on the table otherwise. Next month, normally, if I don't say mistake, I mean, it will be confirmed soon. We will be hosted by